Welcome back to hour 2 of Implicit Bias. This hour, unfortunately, not brought to you by Renee, but brought to you by the one. Is it the one and the only? Is it? Because you have a better half.
Yeah, it's the one and the only store right now.
No, yeah. I was like the one and the only. I was like, you have a better half. So would that?
Yeah, that's true.
It's two of you.
Yeah,
There's two of you. William S. Nacall. I don't know your address. I don't. It's in my phone too.
3802 Johnson Street, Suite B. Right next to Gambino's, actually, another contributor to the show.
Yeah. That way you can go by and you can get your sweets and your treats.
Look, king cakes and Valentine's. It's a good combination. Come by and get you.
You can hide a tennis bracelet.
Is there a line out of Eli's store every day now? It's king cake season.
Y'all would love this because it's like his Christmas for us. Eli, look, he backs a trailer up to his front door 2 or 3 times a day. And it's like a 12-foot trailer by about 5 feet wide, and it is stacked floor to ceiling with king cakes. He's got so many different contracts now with people for king cakes here and in Texas, and just come get your king cake. Stop by, get your wife a little Valentine's gift. It's very busy over there for us right now.
Well, while we're talking about diabetes, I want to go back. I want to go back and talk about what we were talking about earlier, the end of hour 1, and that's medical training, right? Understanding how to put a tourniquet on. And look, the military, we have we used to, I don't know what they call it now, but it was CLS, Combat Lifesaver. And CLS is very different than CPR. CPR, they're going to teach you chest compressions, not J-hooks, but cleaning out the esophagus, that kind of stuff. And CLS, it's nasopharyngeals, which is a tube that goes up through the nasal cavity, helps you breathe really well. J-hooks to open up the jaw. That way you can have an unobstructed breathing way as well if the jaw is still intact, clear out any food, anything else. It does saline locks, IVs, that kind of stuff. And this is very, very important training. And something that I want to say on air that I said off air is there are more people worth saving than there are worth shooting, right? Everybody wants to be the hero in some way, and you have the opportunity with medical training. I don't know about y'all, but my children, one of them likes to inhale his food. He's my oldest now. Isaac, I love you. You're 19 years old. Learn to slow down. And I have given him CPR. Well, we've done the Heimlich and clearing an obstructive breathing way at least 2 times. Once as an 8-9-year-old, and then once as a 6-foot tall man child. And these are if I didn't know what I was doing, like I could have lost my son both times. And it's very, very important that we understand the importance of human life and understanding how to save a life. Because when you understand how to save a life, the dichotomy of that is you understand how to take a life. So you understand what the vitals are, how to do proper chest compressions. And part of that is singing Staying Alive. Staying alive. So that goes into how you do chest compressions. And all of these play a very, very important role because then you understand how the chest compressions work, how to feel the lungs, how to check for a proper pulse. These are all things that, God forbid, anyone ever has to do, but you would have the understanding to do. You know, a good basic med kit, when you think about it, my med kits for years were overdone. You have a med kit and you have a boo-boo kit. I had to learn that I needed a boo-boo kit because you need Band-Aids a lot. Guess what I didn't have? Band-Aids. I mean, I could stitch up a sucking chest wound and do a needle decompression, but I didn't have a Band-Aid. So I had to change the way I did that and have a good basic med kit, tourniquet. You can use a polymer, a Ziploc bag, that kind of stuff. A good rubbing alcohol is very, very nice to have.
So at the Rustic Renegade, you have Band-Aids now?
I do.
Okay, I mean, with all those sharp knives, you have at your store, I mean, you probably need Band-Aids.
Oh yeah, I've learned my lesson, and there's some really great Band-Aids called zip strips. If you want to have a great med kit, buy yourself some. But these are things that we should know as individuals. Josh, I see that you have a question or something pending.
Well, no, but the boo-boo kit, so yeah, the Band-Aids, but like the trauma kits you're talking about, you don't have like the aspirins, the Benadryls, the stuff like that. So there is a difference. I learned that as well, putting those together. So I got all our cars have them. My wife's car, my car, at the office. You never know.
Well, and you don't have to have these big expensive kits. Like I've got a big expensive one, but you don't need that unless you know how to use it.
Yeah.
You don't
Well,
need a mass CAS.
And the problem is with a lot of these kits, medical kits, there's expiration dates on a lot of that stuff. You have to be careful. You know, you don't want to go overboard buying or putting together a kit because you don't use it. Guess what? When you go to use it, that stuff is 20 years old and expired and fallen. You can't use that.
When there are
So
things
you need
that
to maintain it also.
there are things that even though they have an expiration date, they really don't expire as much. And there are certain things that we don't need, right? A tourniquet is a great thing to have, especially if you travel a lot. Because in an automotive wreck, guess what you have a lot of? Heavy lacerations,
Right.
right? So a tourniquet is wonderful for that. The things I was talking about, a zip strip. A zip strip is butterfly bandage that's separated with zip ties. So you remember when I went help out in Florida and did a bunch of hurricane recovery?
Yeah.
We had an older man that was operating a dingo. It's a single man bobcat, we'll call it, or skid steer. Flipped over it, split his chin clean open. His clavicle was fully exposed where he hit the blade. And the guys that were there with him who knew first aid ran to me, probably 1,000 yards away, and said, "Caleb, we need help." And here you have COPD, Caleb, right? So for those who don't know, I've got COPD and I can't run very far. So I'm trying to sprint 1,000 yards. It doesn't happen. And physical fitness is another big thing when it comes to being prepared. And I get there and I'm trying to catch my breath. And here's this man, like a 70-something-year-old Vietnam vet with his chin split wide open and his clavicle exposed. And he's like, "I'm fine. Let me just get back to work." I'm like, "Hold on." So I go through and we clean him up, put rubbing alcohol on him, make sure all the debris is clean out of the wound, and the zip strips go on. You don't need many of them, and you zip tie the wound closed. It is a phenomenal product. They're not a sponsor. If you want to be, please.
Yeah.
But they're not a sponsor, and it is a great product, and it's something that you really want in your first aid kit because how many times can y'all think of in your life where you've cut yourself really good, where your kids cut themselves? If you ever cleaned a deer, you stabbed yourself in the hand. Like these things happen, and they're things that we need to look at and focus on. A good antiseptic is great to have. These are things that we're going to need more often than not. I mean, I would hate to be in an automobile wreck on the way home or at any point in time and have someone not be able to help me because they're not prepared.
Or not have the equipment needed.
I have to look this up because I'm fully aware what a butterfly strip is. You take the wound, you put the strip on either side. It's a little thinner in the center just to close the wound. How do you incorporate a zip tie into that? I have to see this.
You'll see the picture, man. It's a phenomenal product. One of the brands of med kits we sell comes with them. It's a little bit more advanced to get that product with it, but it's an add-on. You can put it in anything. They sell them on all kinds of different services. Like the main things we all forget about are Tylenol, antihistamines, cleaning wipes. You don't need what's called a chitosan bandage. So a chitosan bandage would be if you have a massive wound or a missing limb, it's made from shellfish, right? And in the military, we get issued these. It goes on, it bonds to the flesh and super glues the wound shut. Very painful to take out. Very painful. The individual lives, right? So I'll take a little pain and be alive. In the civilian world, they tell you, ask, are you allergic to shellfish? Like if I'm lying there bleeding on the ground, like hoping to be alive.
I'm allergic to death.
Yeah.
So go ahead and do what
One
you got to do,
allergy
man.
is way worse than the other. So these are things that we have to pay attention to. But like, look, you have protection under the law for trying to help someone.
Right.
And it's up to you how much you want to
now,
help.
is that the Good Samaritan law? Does that go nationwide or is that state by state? I know in Louisiana,
That's a great question.
I know in Louisiana, the Good Samaritan law, you're covered. You attempted to render first aid, and if the person passes, and that they can't really sue you. But other states they might. I don't know. I don't know if that's a federal thing.
That's a great question. And then something else to even think about is the mental preparation that goes with this.
Oh yeah. You got to be calm, cool, and collected the whole time.
There's a series of books by Lieutenant Colonel Dave Grossman on combat and on killing. He has more, but those are the main two that I suggest everyone read because it talks about what happens if you take a human life, if you witness a human life being taken, and how you recover from that. The trauma that you incur is grave, and understanding how to deal with it is very, very important. I know people that witnessed automobile wrecks and saw someone's arm get torn from their body, and they have nightmares from that. And I'm like, ooh, chicken wings. So, it depends on the individual and how prepared you are for it, right? But at the end of the day, like, I don't want someone else to get hurt because I wasn't prepared.
Yeah. Or someone to die because you weren't prepared.
Yeah. And when you look at all that we do in our individual aspects, our individual parts of life, we forget so much. And this is something that gets overlooked because it's not cool. It's not sexy. Yeah. Like, I don't see an EMT calendar out there, but they sure got firemen.
Yeah.
So, well, I mean, constitutional carry is the hip thing. So everybody wants to, talk about wearing a firearm and protecting yourself that way. But you're absolutely right. This is the side of it people don't talk about or just don't think about.
Yeah. I mean, there was I think it was in Florida, a stop happened recently. Law enforcement stopped a man for whatever reason, and they go to disarm him, and a female officer grabs his gun and shoots him through the leg.
Yeah.
And what does she do? She drops the firearm, puts her hands over her face, freaks out, and the initial responding officer applies a tourniquet because she was overcome, like, oops, I made a boo-boo.
Yeah. Well, it's amazing, too. I've seen a lot of those videos. It's amazing with, police stops that the person that they stopped is armed, and the cops don't know how to handle a live firearm. Well, that's scary.
And that varies agency to agency as well, right? Like I speed, and I've been pulled over for speeding, and they're like, hey, do you have a firearm? Sure do. Hey, you keep yours, I'll keep mine. I'm like, that's a great plan. I'm good with that.
Yeah.
And, we just go around our merry little way. But at the end of the day, you have to understand that just because someone has a badge or wears a uniform, that's military, law enforcement, EMS, whatever, doesn't mean they know anything and everything. There is a ton that I don't know, a ton. And there's a ton that we all don't know.
Right.
But at the end of the day, we're here for another rotation on the sun, and we want to make sure that we see one more.
Yeah.
How much longer we got in this one? Is that a thumbs up or is that a 1-5? Oh, yeah. Can we add this to the next one? What are you looking at me for? I don't know.
What are you talking about? Add it to the next one.
Can we just add this to the next segment and go along? I don't know how this works.
Caleb.
Yeah, we can. Yeah. That's good.
Caleb, just a little side note. I saw that video. Obviously, the gentleman in question, he was pulled out of the car, and they asked him, "Are you armed?" And he said, "Yes, I am." So everybody was calm. Mm-hmm. It was a nice, the way it should be. He let the officers know, and the female officer reaches around him, grabs the pistol, and when she does, I guess her finger slipped into the trigger guard.
Booger hook and bang switch.
So I just want to say I hope this guy's okay, because considering where the gun was and where it was aimed, he's lucky it was just his leg that was pierced.
He was
by
a
the
big
bullet.
guy, and I don't know if that transcribes to everywhere. So.
Yeah, he was a big boy, but I mean, it's just purely accidental. But yeah, luckily everybody turned out okay on that one.
Yeah, it could have been much worse.
I mean, this was aggravating spend time at the Capitol helping to get a constitutional carry passed, but all these laws were before we got to constitutional carry. Constantly, the legislators, they want to put in exceptions. Where the law before the current constitutional carry law was that if you're military or law enforcement, you can carry. So there's this idea, and at least in the legislature, that if you're military and you're police, that you know everything there is to know about firearms. And if you're civilian, you don't know what you're doing, and you shouldn't have a firearm. And so that's what's aggravating about that, especially when you see videos.
It's very
like
disheartening.
This. Well, there's many times that there's lots of responsible gun owners, and I don't like using that term, but there's a lot of times where, I mean, we get training more so than law enforcement or even in military. Like if you're not, I would imagine, in a certain unit or do a certain thing, how often do you get to the firing line?
Very, very valid point. And you and I met quite a few times up there in Baton Rouge and discussed these kind of things because depending on your unit, you might qualify once a year. You might not go to a unit where you qualify once a quarter. And then you're proficient with your firearm, not multiple, right? It's one firearm system. And when it comes to law enforcement, they qualify with their sidearm. And when you look at the way I look at things, is the purpose of a handgun is to get to a long gun, right? The only thing better than a handgun is a big gun. So that's the point that's the way I look at things. But we have to break down and look at other things as well. Like I can only carry so many rounds. I can only carry so much information, so much ammunition, so much in my Batman belt. So it's what are we going to use more often? And at the end of the day, like, look, a Mark 19 on the back of my truck would sound great. Belt fed, 40 mic, HEDP, high explosive, deep penetrating. I can't carry that around.
I think the local police would look at you very funny.
They
might pull you over a lot.
I drove around with a 1919 in the back of my truck for a little while, and no one stopped me.
Really?
Yeah, belt fed 30-06.
Really?
And they were like, "Oh, that's Tuesday."
Yeah.
But
I knew a guy that had a military Jeep. He was one of the military collectors, and he actually had. It wasn't a real one, but it was a mock-up of a 50 cal. He got stopped all the time because you can't have that. And he goes, "Dude, it's a non-functional
and you can have the real thing."
Yeah,
and that's the problem.
Yeah.
Look at how often we're stopped or engaged by people that don't understand the basics of the law. Just because you're doing something suspicious isn't illegal. Being suspicious is not illegal.
Right.
It's being suspicious. Doing something that's out of character is not illegal. It's out of character, right? So we can do so much in this nation, and I hope and pray that that's the direction we continue to go, is we just let each other be. But it's understanding that, look, we have an intrinsic value, an intrinsic responsibility, the responsibility that each of us feel here. When you look at everyone in this room owns their own business, right? And we do business the way that we think is the best way. We treat people a certain way. Customer service to everyone in here, I know how you treat your customers. They treat them phenomenally because we think that's the right way to do it. But not everyone does that.
That's the way I want to be treated. So,
Well, people don't. So we talk about rights a lot, but the reverse side of that coin is a duty. So I have a right, or you have a right, but I also have a duty to respect your rights. And so it works both ways.
Yeah.
When we want other people to respect our rights and have a duty to respect our rights.
Right.
Where we get into issues is whenever people don't follow that responsibility, and they think that their rights trample yours. And freedom of speech is very, very important. Followed by the Second Amendment to protect that freedom of speech because it's so important. The ability to say what we want to say, to be out here and to talk to the listeners, to talk to you, and to be able to communicate and convey this information is very important, whether you agree, disagree, or whatever.
Well, it's like they say, the second is because of the first.
Well, and with the second, I think we get caught up in the gun aspect of it. But really, when you look at what is the Second Amendment, the right to keep and bear arms, it's the right to life. It is the right to protect your life and the life of your loved ones and your community. That's what it's about. It's not about the tool. It's about protecting your life.
The ability to stand up for the first.
When we look at it, like, we allowed the NFA Act, National Firearms Act, to go through and say we shouldn't own machine guns. Look, I think that we should own machine guns, grenade launchers, Mark 19s, whatever you want to have.
It's
missiles, if you can afford it, buy a missile.
Well, it's like psionics, the silencers, the cans. People watch too many movies.
If people knew what they would really like, they would beg everyone to have them.
Exactly. I mean, in Europe, you can't hunt without one.
Mm-hmm.
But do they regulate it like they do here? No. They regulate the guns like nobody's business. But
you can buy them in a hardware store in Europe. The thing is, they're technically, I mean, that is deemed to be a firearm under the law is ridiculous. Like, what part of this actually shoots?
Yeah,
fires a bullet out of
if
here?
it's just
the
sitting
muffler
on the
on your
table.
truck. It's the muffler on your truck would be the F-250.
It's the same. The same guy, Hiram Maxim, invented the silencer.
Yes.
And then he didn't make a ton of money off of that, and so he adapted that technology and invented the car muffler, and that's where he made all of his money.
Yeah.
It's the exact same technology.
Yeah.
And that's, we get so caught up in the Hollywood of all this stuff, right? It goes back to what do people think is sexy and how ignorant can we be?
Yeah.
Because we don't always realize what we don't know. And there's a ton that I don't know. When I talk to everyone here, I mean, that's why I call Brant when I have issues with my plumbing, because I don't know plumbing, and Josh, you and I bounce things off your head on the legal side and everything else. And Grant, I call you when I forget about Valentine's Day. And I text Renee when I'm in Las Vegas and I'm like, have you ever heard of this cigar? Is this a good cigar? Like, there are things that we don't know. And I think that's the humility side of it, is we can't have this hubris. We have to understand that there are
But-
certain things I'm ignorant
Well,
about.
the key is that we know what we don't know, but we know people that do.
Ooh, that's worthy.
You know,
That's good.
That's how you develop that network. There's things that we don't know, but we know people that do know what we don't know.
Well, I think that's part of why King Solomon was so wise, right?
Yes.
It's understanding that you may be the wisest man in the world that day, but tomorrow is going to come. So it's how do you expand that knowledge and you surround yourself with trustworthy, knowledgeable people. And hopefully we're those people. You know, not just us, but hopefully you have other people in your life that you can sit down and say, look, I need competence. I need countenance. I need advice. And someone should be able to sit there and look at you honestly and say, you're being foolish. Look, if you've got, I was cleaning out my other truck, right? And moving it over to the new vehicle. And I found like 15,000 rounds of 22. And I was like, why do I have this much?
15,000?
Yeah.
Dude, that's like,
that's 12. That's like 10 or 12 bricks.
A brick. Yeah, a brick is
10 or
500 rounds, man.
Well, okay, that's a lot. So
I was like, where are you hiding that?
under my back seat. So I go shoot and I forget that I have ammo. So I'm like, I'll get more. So I'm sitting down. I'm like, I don't need all this ammo. So I stacked it up and like in my truck, I've got 1,000 rounds of 22 because I might go somewhere and need some 22 or like there's some kids that might be at the shooting range or with their parents and they're like, you want some 22? Like they're shooting at something and like, here's more. You'll keep playing, keep practicing, learn. And that's what I have it for. It's not to go out and try to storm the Capitol with a 22 long rifle, but it's understanding
luck
that there's
with that.
more you need to know.
Yeah.
And it's learning that you can't carry everything all the time. But the important things you can carry are a willing and able heart and a willing and able mind. So is that like we're ending on that? You don't know? I think we're ending on that.
That would have been the perfect ending.
Yeah. So if we're not ending right there, we'll go back to it. He'll chop it, edit it, do it again. We'll end on that. But see y'all for our segment 2 of hour 2.